Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I want to do a follow-up to a previous book chat I've done about how I have a problem with finales. You guys know, because I mention it basically every finale that I read, that I have a big problem with finales. Typically speaking, YA fantasy finales. So basically every YA fantasy finale I read, I don't end up liking as much as the other books. I can still end up liking them, but just not as much as the other books in the series. I will link my original discussion video up above because I'm probably going to be reiterating a lot of that stuff, but you guys recently mentioned that you want me to talk about this problem with finales again, and a couple people were like, oh, how about you list and talk about some of your favorite YA fantasy finales, because I have a problem with YA fantasy finales. They, like, always disappoint me. So, I tried. No. Liked it, but no. Liked it, but no. No, not as good as the second book. So Ignite Me might be one of the only ones that counts because I think it's the best book in the series. I've done a recent video on the finale being the best book in the series, or the books that get better with each book, so that might have a lot of overlap with this, but Ignite Me was not a disappointing finale for me. I was very happy with this finale, but the first book is crap, and then the second book is a little bit better. The first half of the second book I'm not a huge fan of, the second half I really like, and then this one I pretty much liked throughout most of it. But again, it's not like the series isn't outstanding, it's not like just beautiful, it's fun, but it's nothing like special. I guess Clockwork Princess also counts, but that again is another one that like isn't anything super special, and I was only really reading it for the finale. Like, each book did get better. Each book got better, and I don't feel like this was disappointing. But at the same time, it still does the thing that I hate that YA fantasy finales like always do. Here's my recipe for disaster for particularly YA fantasy finales. I tend to enjoy adult fantasy finales. I have yet to have like a huge problem with any of them that I've read thus far, so that's fine. Adult fantasy finales and SFF, just in general, finales tend to be fine. It's the YA ones, because for some reason, the YA finales don't go there at all, or they go there halfway and then they like take it back. It's really annoying. So my recipe for disaster for YA fantasy finales is no consequences and not living up to the potential of usually the second book. So a lot of my favorite series on here, the second book is my favorite book. Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. The Winter's Crime by Marie Rutkowski. A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. The Crown of Embers by Ray Carson. These are all second books that I love, that I thought set the stage so well for the final books, and the final books were still good. Like, even Ruin and Rising, which I had like more issues with when I first read it, like it's still like a decent finale. The Beauty of Darkness is a really good finale. The Winter's Kiss is a really good finale, but they're still below my love for the second book in the series. So it's, again, not that I think that YA fantasy finales are bad, horrible, the worst things ever. They're just disappointing to me. So I end up feeling like I'm ranting more than I really want to. Like, a lot of these finales I gave like 4 stars. Like, they're still good, but like they're just not what I thought I was going to get out of the second book. There's, like I said, not a lot of consequences for action. So a lot of these books, especially YA fantasies and fantasies in general, there's like a war. There's a huge magical war, or there's something horrible happening, or there's like political stuff happening, and there's usually a group of characters, like usually like an ensemble cast, and for the most part, everyone makes it out alive, unscathed, or if a character doesn't make it out, it's like not that important of a character. Like, it's like, oh, someone's dad that's never talked on page died, and that's supposed to be a giant tragedy. Cool. So that's really obnoxious. Or there's like no consequences for death. Like, a lot of times you'll have characters die, and it's a fantasy, so like I get it. I never believe the characters are dead when they're dead. Like, I just don't. I'm just like, nope, they can come back. They can totally come back. There's magic in this world, they can come back. But a lot of times you'll have a character die, and then it's like, oh, they're coming back before the end of the book, and it's like, so there's no consequences? So everyone's fine? The second ingredient for the recipe for disaster is everyone getting paired up at the end. The worst. I hate it. I hate it. Yes, like, yes, a lot of friend groups in real life are like, just they commingle and everyone dates and whatever, but usually they don't all end up together. Like, usually, like, I'm sure someone will be like, all of my best friends all married my other best friends and blah, blah, blah. Great. that usually doesn't happen. Like, it's just unrealistic, and it's like all the straights just hooking up, and it's just like, why? This shouldn't happen. This happens in so many books. I'm thinking, I was like, oh, it happened in here, happened in here. It like vaguely happened in here, not a ton, I forgive it. It happened in here, but like, okay, so Cricket Kingdom's like a different situation because I love Cricket Kingdom. I think it's a really good finale, but it's still not as good in my opinion as Six of Crows. But I almost feel like this duology is like one giant thing, so it's hard to kind of think of this finale. I wouldn't really necessarily consider it disappointing. I just didn't like it as much as the first book, but it definitely has the whole like everyone paired up. Why? It's just not necessary. Every time it happens, I'm like, why is everyone dating? Why? Like, I understand that it was like a really tense time period and you're all like going to battle together and like hormones are high and tensions are flaring and blah 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 blah. But like, really? And they're usually all like fated, you know? They're all like fated to be together and it's like everyone's like an OTP and a perfect match and it's like, no. No, no. And number 3 is kind of a combination of all these things, but it's everything being tied up in a pretty little bow. What I'm getting really sick of seeing, because it's happened a few times recently, most recently in Clockwork Angel and then Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor, but what I'm dreading seeing now, because it's become a pattern, is the villain will be dealt with, in whatever way they're going to be dealt with, like 100, 150 pages before the end of the book, and then you're like, oh shit. This is the part where the author is going to use this time to wrap up everything perfectly for everyone, which again is like no consequences and everyone getting together. And I'm like, please stop. I hate it. I hate it. I want my finales to be more messy, okay? Like, I need, like, the plot to be tight, but I want the character stuff to sometimes be messy. Like, I want to be devastated. War, in particular, has consequences. People die. If you're setting the expectation for this to be the most horrible thing ever in the second book, usually, like, that ends up happening, like, this is gonna be catastrophic. This thing that's gonna happen in the finale is gonna be catastrophic. And then it's just not. It's like, I'm gonna stop believing you, you know? And it's not just one author that does this. They all do this. And it's just like, I understand the need for like happy endings and for books being an escape, but like every single YA fantasy finale has to end up where everyone's fine. Everyone's fine. And in like the perfect situation for them, happy, or like, oh, my dad died. My dad, who I've never really like had a relationship with, he died. It's so sad. Like, that's your emotional impact for me? Or like a character dying and coming back in like one chapter, like, I can't. Like, it's too much. I'm so sick of everything being wrapped up well. Like, here's the thing about YA, is that a lot of people are like, YA is really good for like teaching lessons, you know, books are good for teaching lessons and all this stuff. Don't you want young people, young adults to have the idea that like, actions have consequences and war is messy and not like, oh, we can go off to battle and then like every one of your friends survives and you all get married and live happily ever after lives. No. And the adult books take it there. They're like, oh look, messed up shit happens and it's bad, and when you have these cataclysmic world events like world-ending apocalypses, you know, battles with dark lords and like all this stuff, like people are gonna die. That's one thing about Harry Potter. That's like, fine. It's messy. Is the epilogue not messy? No. I mean, the epilogue is we don't talk about like how the epilogue is, particularly in the movie, which is horrendous, and I watched it recently and I was just like, why is this so bad? But in general, the ending of Harry Potter, like, people died. Important people died. Like, important soul-crushing people died, because in war, people die. And in magical wars, people are going to die. So I'm sick of reading these YA fantasy finales where nothing bad happens. And there's no threat. Like, at this point, I don't even get scared for characters when I'm reading a YA fantasy finale, typically speaking, because I'm just like, they're gonna be fine. It's a YA, they're gonna be fine. Like, if I'm reading an adult book, typically speaking, I'll be like a little more nervous and I'll keep my distance. I don't want to get too attached. But in YA, I'm like, they're probably gonna be fine. Like, there's no threat to them. I want there to be consequences. I want there to be threats to characters. Do I want to see all my babies die? No. But in a way, yes. Because it's like, I want there to be consequences, and I want to, like, feel that suspense, and I haven't felt that suspense in, like, years, because no one gives me the suspense. Everything ends up fine. That's not how life works. It's not, and I want my fantasy to have a little more edge to it, to have a little more bite, and currently, the last 10 or 15 YA fantasy finales that I've read haven't done that. The next one coming up for me as far as a series ender is the last book immortal reign in the Fallen Kingdoms world, and I do not have high hopes. Because there's a track record. There's a track record of people not going there and not making things messy and killing off like a minor character that nobody cares about. Which will probably be what happens. And it'll be like, oh look, it's so sad. It's not. It's a cop-out. Like, go there. YA fantasy authors, please. Please. Go there. Please go there. I, and a lot of other people, because a lot of other people said the same thing to me when we're talking about finales and me doing usually like gush/gripes on finales. People are like, yeah, I felt the same way. It was really disappointing. Again, it's not that these finales aren't good. A lot of these books are some of my favorite books. They're good books. They're even great books sometimes. They're just not as good as the second book. And the potential that they had to be fantastic. Go there. Go there. If you're writing a YA fantasy or science fiction, but mostly fantasy, please go there. Take it there. Kill your darlings. We want you to kill your darlings because all these other darlings are fine. Like, there's no suspense there. They're all gonna be fine. Magically brought back to life or some crap. So, go there. I just want to read a finale, a YA finale, because again, the adult ones do a pretty good job. A YA finale that leaves me broken. So, that is my rant for now. It's probably something that'll come up a lot. If I, at all, read a YA fantasy finale that actually goes there, you'll definitely hear about it, because I'll be so excited, because it never happens. So comment below, let me know your thoughts on this. If you feel like YA fantasy finales take it there, they don't. And if you have any recommendations for ones that you think take it there without spoiling it, like, don't be like, oh, this thing, you know. But like, you know, ones that actually are good finales with consequences, where not everyone ends up together. Shocker. I bet you can't tell me one, because that's how they all end up. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!